We're now going to examine what we call the analysis of receivables method. It's also called the aging of receivables. And what it does, it looks at all the customers who owe you money and when they owe you money and determines how much of it will not be collected. In other words, if somebody owes you money for more than 90 days and your terms are 30, there's less of a chance you're going to collect that money than if somebody owed you money under 30 days. So this is called analysis of receivables or aging the receivables. And this is next slide is a step-by-step how to do that, but most accounting systems actually run an aging of the receivables. So I need to know the due date of each account, the number of days each account is past due. So for example, I'm going to have a classification, so 1 to 30 days past due. You know what? Wait, let's get to the slide and I'll show you how that's calculated. So this is called aging the receivables. And here's what it looks like. Hopefully you guys can see this. So this is a list of all the customers. So over here is a list of all my customers. Here's a list of the amounts of money they owe me in total. Of the 1,500, Ashby and Company owes me 1,500. That is what I call 31 to 60 days past due. So you have to remember that if my terms are 30 days and there it's past due by 31 days, the invoice date is more than 60 days old. So keep that in mind. So the first column here is anything that's not past due. My terms are 30, so anything under 30 days from the invoice date would fall in this category. In the 1 to 30 days past due, the invoice date is at least 31 days old in order to fall into this category. And again, 31 to 60 means the invoice date is at least 61 days past, because the first 30 are my credit days, and then it's past due by. Past due by 31 days plus the 30 from the original. So when you get over here, 181 days past due, that's more than 6 months. That's actually 7 months or longer. And over here is over a year. So I have a total, and they're just showing you, there's lots of customers here. I can't show you the whole slide, or otherwise we won't be able to see it. So the total is owed to me. Total customer owes me $240,000. Of that, $125,000 is not even past due. $64,000 is 1 to 30 days past due. So that means that the invoice dates are at least 31 days ago, but not more than 60 days ago. And as I go down, this tells me how much of the 240 is past due. So if I add up all of these numbers here, they will equal 240. Notice down here I have $14,000 more than a year past due. If you have anybody on your books for more than a year past due, you need to be having conversations as to why they're still there. This customer, I have a total of $10,000 more than 6 months past due. You need to have serious conversations with this customer. So what happens on the aging of the receivables, it breaks down how much is past due in each of these columns, and then it determines what percent of each column will not be collectible. And so these percents are not anything that you'll ever have to come up with. It'll always be given to you. So what this is telling me is that 2% of the 125,000 will probably not be collectible. So there's my 2%, 2,500. Here it's 5% of the 64,000, 10% of the 13,100, and so on. Over here, 80% of the 14,000 is probably never going to be collected. And so that number is 11,200. So what I'm going to do after I multiply all of these, I'm going to take this, starting from this number right here, the 2,500, I'm going to take all these numbers. Sorry about that. My phone was ringing and I had to mute it. I'm going to take all of these numbers here from starting right here, add them up, and they total 26,490. So here's what I want you to write down. Get a sheet of paper out. I want you to write this down. It is extremely important. And you know if I tell you to write it down how important it is. I'll wait a second while you get paper. So when I'm doing the aging of the receivables or the accounts receivable analysis, same terminology, the number I get here becomes the adjusted balance. So I'll say that again. When I'm using this method of the write-offs, the number I get here, which is the total of all these numbers here, becomes my adjusted balance. This is extremely important to know. What method you're using tells you where your answer goes on the T account. Okay, so let's take a look. So what happened is, remember I got a total of $26,490, and so here's my journal entry for $23,240. Let me show you why that is what it is. Here's my T account for allowance for doubtful accounts. My unadjusted balance was $32.50. The adjusted balance is the number that I got, the $26,490. So in order to find the adjusting entry, by the way, the adjusting entry is the only actual journal entry you're doing here. I need to subtract on here. So you can understand that the key is, where is my unadjusted balance? If it's credit and I'm using this method, I will subtract that from the adjusted balance. What if I had a debit unadjusted balance? Then I would add it to the $26,490 to come up with the adjusting entry. That's where the confusing part comes right here. So based upon where my balance is, where is my unadjusted balance? Is it here or is it on the debit side? That's the hardest part of this chapter.